The rescue mission. The planet Terrian was a battlefield. Once home to sprawling forests and glittering cities, it was now a wasteland covered in ash and debris. Captain Aaron Steele crouched behind a crumbled wall, scanning the horizon through his visor. The air was thick with smoke, and distant explosions rumbled like a storm. His orders were clear: locate and extract any surviving civilians before the enemy wiped out the area completely. Aaron was a seasoned soldier. He had seen his share of war, but this mission felt different. Something about the silence between the gunfire set his nerves on edge. The enemy, a ruthless alien race known as the Krathens, had overrun this planet weeks ago. Few had survived their onslaught, and the odds of finding anyone alive were slim. As Aaron motioned his team to move forward, his visor picked up a faint heat signature inside a destroyed building. It was small, almost insignificant, but it was there. He gestured for his squad to hold position while he investigated. Alone, he moved quietly, his boots crunching softly against the rubble. The building was barely standing. Its roof had caved in, and walls leaned precariously against each other. Inside, it was dark except for the faint glow of fires outside. Aaron adjusted his helmet's night vision, scanning the area. That's when he saw her. She was huddled in a corner, half hidden behind a collapsed beam. Her skin shimmered faintly, like polished metal reflecting the moonlight. Her eyes, wide with fear, glowed softly in the dark. She wasn't human. That much was obvious. She was alien, though unlike any Aaron had encountered before. She clutched a strange device close to her chest, her breathing rapid and shallow. Aaron raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm here to help," he said, keeping his voice calm. The woman flinched but didn't run. She seemed too weak to move. Her clothes were torn, and dark bruises marked her arms. Blood, an iridescent blue, trickled from a gash on her forehead. Suddenly, Aaron's visor beeped. Enemy patrols were closing in. He didn't have time to question her or figure out what she was doing here. If they stayed, they were both dead. "Can you walk?" he asked, stepping closer. The woman blinked at him, her glowing eyes filled with uncertainty. She didn't reply but made a feeble attempt to stand. Aaron didn't wait. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and scooped her up in his arms. She was surprisingly light, her body trembling as he carried her out of the wreckage. The sound of Krathen soldiers grew louder. Their guttural voices echoed through the ruins. Aaron activated his comms. "I've got a survivor. Preparing for extraction. Cover me." "Understood, Captain," came the reply. "Enemy forces are closing in fast. You've got 5 minutes." Aaron sprinted through the rubble, the alien woman cradled against him. Her fingers clutched his chest plate tightly, as if she understood the danger. Behind them, the Krathens spotted their movement and opened fire. Plasma bolts scorched the air, narrowly missing them. Aaron's team responded with precision, laying down suppressive fire to buy him time. He zigzagged through the ruins, his muscles burning with the effort. The woman muttered something in a language he couldn't understand. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but filled with urgency. She held the strange device tightly, refusing to let it go. "Whatever that is," Aaron muttered under his breath, "it better be worth all this trouble." They reached the extraction point, a small clearing where a dropship hovered just above the ground. The ship's ramp was down, and Aaron's squad was already retreating towards it, firing at the advancing Krathens. Aaron pushed himself harder, his boots pounding against the ground. The enemy fire intensified as they neared the dropship. One of Aaron's soldiers shouted, "Captain, watch out." Aaron ducked instinctively as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, striking the ground in front of him. He stumbled but kept moving, shielding the woman with his body. The dropship's turret roared to life, unleashing a barrage of fire that forced the Krathens to take cover. Finally, Aaron reached the ramp and climbed aboard. His team followed, one of them hitting the controls to close the hatch. The ship lifted off, engines roaring as it ascended into the smoky sky. Aaron set the woman down gently on a bench, his chest heaving with exertion. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with gratitude and something else. Hope. She spoke again in her alien tongue, her voice weak but insistent. Aaron shook his head, frustrated that he couldn't understand her. Rest, he said simply. You're safe now. The woman hesitated, then nodded, clutching the device as if her life depended on it. Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that this rescue was only the beginning of something much larger. Whatever this alien woman was running from, it was clear she carried more than just secrets. As the dropship soared away from the battlefield, Aaron glanced back at her one last time. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, he felt the weight of a destiny he didn't yet understand. The escape. The dropship's interior hummed with the vibration of its engines, but the tension inside was palpable. Captain Aaron Steele paced near the cockpit, his mind racing. The alien woman sat quietly on the bench, still clutching the strange artifact, as though it was her lifeline. The glow in her eyes had dimmed slightly, but her expression was far from calm. She looked wary, her gaze darting between Aaron and the other soldiers, as if expecting trouble at any moment. Captain, his pilot called from the cockpit, breaking his thoughts. We've got a problem. Aaron stepped forward. What kind of problem? The pilot gestured to the radar screen. Krathan fighters inbound. Looks like they've locked onto us. We're about to have company. Aaron's jaw tightened. How much time do we have? Not enough, the pilot replied grimly. We need to lose them, and fast. Aaron turned back to his team. Strap in. This is going to get rough. Then, addressing the woman, he crouched to her eye level and spoke as gently as he could. Do you understand me? We're being followed. If there's anything you can do to help us, anything, now's the time. She blinked, her glowing eyes narrowing as if she understood the gravity of the situation. Slowly, she lifted the artifact, her fingers brushing over its smooth, intricate surface. Symbols lit up faintly, casting a soft blue light across her face. She muttered something in her language, her tone filled with urgency. What is that thing? Aaron asked, watching her closely. Before she could answer, or try to, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Krathan fighters had arrived. They're locking on, the pilot shouted. Aaron grabbed the comms. Evasive maneuvers. Don't let them pin us down. The dropship lurched violently as the pilot swerved to avoid incoming fire. Aaron barely managed to grab hold of a railing to steady himself. Plasma bolts streaked past the windows, lighting up the dark skies. The Krathans weren't just trying to destroy them. They were hurting them, forcing the dropship into a specific trajectory. They're pushing us towards the asteroid field, Aaron realized, his voice grim. They want us trapped. Then we give them what they want, the pilot replied, gripping the controls tightly. Better the asteroids than them. Aaron hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Do it. Take us in. The dropship plunged into the asteroid field, weaving between massive jagged rocks that tumbled through the void. The Krathan fighters followed, their weapons lighting up the darkness with deadly precision. Inside the ship, the soldiers gripped their seats tightly, faces pale as they braced for impact. Aaron glanced at the alien woman. She was holding the artifact tightly, her lips moving in what looked like a prayer. Her glow had returned, brighter this time, and it seemed to pulse in rhythm with the device. Aaron couldn't tell if it was the artifact or the woman herself, but something about the light made him feel an odd sense of calm amidst the chaos. A sharp jolt snapped him out of it. One of the Krathan plasma bolts had grazed the dropship's hull. Warning lights flashed, and the ship shuddered violently. Shields are down to 30%, the pilot yelled. We can't keep this up. Aaron clenched his fists. They needed a plan, and fast. Turning to the woman, he pointed to the artifact. Can that thing do anything to help us? Anything at all? She stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. Then, as if finally understanding his plea, she nodded. Her hands moved over the artifact's surface with practiced precision, activating a series of glowing symbols. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The pilot looked back, alarmed. "What is she doing?" "I have no idea," Aaron admitted, "but it's either this or we die." The hum reached a crescendo, and suddenly the artifact emitted a pulse of energy. It wasn't an explosion, but a wave of light that radiated outward from the dropship. The Krathan fighters were caught in its path. Their engines sputtered and died, and one by one, the ships drifted aimlessly, powerless. Aaron's team stared in stunned silence as the wave dissipated. The asteroid field was eerily quiet now, save for the sound of their own engines. The Krathan threat had been neutralized, for the moment. "What the hell was that?" one of the soldiers muttered. Aaron turned to the woman, his expression a mix of awe and suspicion. "You're going to have to start explaining things," he said. "What is that thing, and why do the Krathans want it so badly?" She looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and determination. In broken English, she finally spoke. "It is a key to end war, to save my people." Aaron frowned. "What do you mean, a key? A key to what?" But before she could answer, the ship's sensors beeped again. More signatures appeared on the radar, bigger this time. Aaron's heart sank. They weren't out of danger yet. Whatever this key was, it had just painted an even bigger target on their backs. And Aaron had a sinking feeling that this mission was only going to get more complicated. Hunted. The dropship hummed quietly as it docked inside the reinforced hangar of the human outpost known as Bastion Delta, a remote installation hidden deep within a dense asteroid belt. The base was a fortress, designed to withstand heavy assaults, but Captain Aaron Steele felt no relief as he stepped off the ramp. His instincts told him their troubles were far from over. Behind him, the alien woman, Lara, he had finally learned her name during the tense flight, followed hesitantly, clutching the artifact as if it were her lifeline. The soft glow in her eyes and the faint shimmer of her skin drew curious, wary looks from the base personnel. Soldiers whispered among themselves, and some even reached for their weapons. "Stand down," Aaron barked, his voice sharp enough to snap everyone to attention. "She's with me. Treat her as an ally." The crowd dispersed reluctantly, though their suspicious glances lingered. Lyra kept her head low, her glowing eyes scanning her surroundings nervously. Aaron could tell she felt out of place here, surrounded by humans who didn't trust her. "Captain Steele," a voice called out. Aaron turned to see Commander Briggs, the grizzled leader of Bastion Delta, striding toward him. His piercing gaze swept over Aaron, then shifted to Lyra. "Care to explain why you've brought an unidentified alien into my base, breaking every protocol in the book?" Aaron squared his shoulders. "She's a civilian, Commander. The Krathans were hunting her. Whatever she's carrying is important enough for them to send an entire fleet after us." Briggs' eyes narrowed. "And you think bringing her here was the smart play? This base is a strategic asset. If the Krathans track her, they'll hit us with everything they've got." "They're already tracking her," Aaron admitted. "But we've bought ourselves some time. She used that thing to disable their fighters. It's more than just important. It might be the key to stopping this war." Briggs frowned but motioned for them to follow. "This better be worth it, Steele." The artifact's secrets. Inside the base's secure briefing room, Aaron, Lyra, and Briggs sat around a table. The artifact rested in the center, its faint blue glow casting strange patterns on the walls. Lyra hesitated, her hands hovering over the device, as she tried to explain in halting English. "This, not weapon," she began, her voice soft but firm. "It, code, open, ancient machine. Save my people." Aaron leaned forward. "What kind of machine? And why are the Krathans after it?" Lyra shook her head, struggling to find the words. "Machine. Old. Very powerful. Protect. Many worlds. Krathans. Fear it. Briggs raised an eyebrow. So it's a defensive system, something that can turn the tide of the war. Yes, Lyra said, her glowing eyes locking onto his. But, need this. She gestured to the artifact. Without, machine. Not work. Aaron exchanged a glance with Briggs. The implications were staggering. If this artifact could activate some kind of ancient weapon capable of repelling the Krathens, it was worth any risk. But the question remained, how did they use it? And where? Coordinates? Aaron asked. Do you know where this machine is? Lyra hesitated before nodding. She reached out and pressed her fingers to the artifact. It hummed softly, projecting a holographic map into the air. Aaron and Briggs stared at the shimmering display, a cluster of stars with a single planet marked by a glowing symbol. That's deep in Krathen-controlled territory. Briggs muttered, scowling. Getting there would be suicide. Aaron folded his arms. Then we don't have a choice. If this is what we need to end the war, we have to take the risk. Sabotage and betrayal. Their conversation was cut short by a sudden explosion that rocked the base. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered as the room shook violently. What now? Briggs growled, rising to his feet. Aaron activated his comms. Report. What's going on? A panicked voice crackled through the line. We've been compromised. Enemy drones are inside the perimeter. They must have hacked our systems. Aaron's blood ran cold. He turned to Lyra, who looked just as startled. Is there any way they could have traced the artifact here? Lyra shook her head vehemently. No. Artifact. Not trackable. But her expression darkened. Maybe. Someone else. Aaron's stomach sank. He'd been so focused on protecting Lyra and the artifact that he hadn't considered another possibility. Betrayal. Someone on the base had to have sent a signal to the Krathens. As the explosions grew louder, Aaron and Briggs rushed to the command center. Soldiers scrambled to defend the base, firing at the swarm of Krathen drones that had breached the hangar. In the chaos, Aaron noticed something strange. A junior technician sneaking away from his console, clutching a datapad. Stop him, Aaron shouted. The technician bolted, but Aaron tackled him to the ground. The datapad fell from his hands, and Aaron quickly accessed its contents. His worst fears were confirmed. The technician had been transmitting coordinates to the Krathens. Why? Aaron demanded, dragging the man to his feet. They paid me. The technician spat, defiance in his eyes. Promised me safety when they take this sector. You don't stand a chance against them. Aaron's fist clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. You've just cost us lives. And for what? A lie. Before the traitor could reply, a Krathen drone burst into the corridor, its plasma cannon charging. Aaron shoved the technician aside and fired his rifle, destroying the drone in a single shot. Briggs, Aaron said through gritted teeth, we need to evac. The base is compromised. Briggs nodded grimly. And the artifact? Aaron looked at Lyra, who stood clutching the device as chaos erupted around her. We keep it safe, no matter what. We get her to that machine. The great chase begins. As the soldiers fought to hold off the Krathens, Aaron, Lyra, and a small team of trusted personnel made their way to a secondary dropship. The hangar was in flames, drones swarming everywhere. But Aaron's team moved with precision, clearing a path. Lyra climbed aboard the ship, her glowing eyes filled with determination. Aaron followed, slamming the hatch shut as the dropship's engines roared to life. We're heading for those coordinates, he told the pilot. No detours, no delays. The dropship lifted off, leaving the burning base behind. Aaron glanced at Lyra, who held the artifact tightly. Whatever lay ahead, he knew they had no choice but to see it through. The hunt was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The revelation. The dropship streaked through space, leaving the burning remains of Bastion Delta far behind. Aaron sat across from Lyra, his eyes locked on the alien artifact that rested in her lap. The steady hum of the ship's engines was the only sound as the crew tried to process the chaos they had just escaped. The tension in the air was thick, but Aaron's mind was racing with unanswered questions. "You've got some explaining to do," Aaron said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm but firm. "What exactly is this artifact, and why are the Krathens so desperate to get their hands on it?" Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes meeting his. She had been quiet during the escape, her focus entirely on the artifact. Now she seemed to weigh her words carefully. "This, not just artifact," she began, her voice soft but steady. "It legacy. My people call it the key." Aaron frowned. "A key to what?" Lyra took a deep breath. "To awaken, protector. Ancient machine. Built long before my time. My people, guardians of this machine." Aaron exchanged a glance with one of his soldiers. "A machine. What kind of machine are we talking about here?" "Protector," Lyra repeated. "It, shield. Weapon. Strong enough. Stop Krathens. But forgotten by many. Only my family know how to find it." Aaron's eyebrows rose. "Your family? Are you saying this machine has been passed down like some kind of royal secret?" Lyra nodded, her hands tightening around the artifact. "My family. Rulers of my people. I. Last heir." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Aaron sat back, his mind reeling. He had rescued an alien princess. No, a queen in exile. Suddenly, everything made sense. The Krathens' relentless pursuit, her desperation, and the artifact's importance. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" Aaron asked, his tone more curious than accusatory. "You not trust me," Lyra replied simply. "Now, no choice. A dark past." Lyra's voice grew steadier as she began to tell her story. Her people, the Illyrian, had once been a thriving civilization, spread across several star systems. They were a peaceful race, known for their advanced technology and deep connection to the stars. But that peace had shattered when the Krathens invaded. "They fear Protector," Lyra said. "They destroy my people to stop us from waking it." Aaron leaned forward. "So they've been trying to wipe out your entire civilization, just to keep this machine dormant?" Lyra nodded. "My people, scattered, hiding. But without Protector, we cannot fight back." Her voice faltered, and she looked down at the artifact. "My father, my mother, they died to protect this. Told me, run, find human allies. You, our last hope." Aaron let her words sink in. The thought of an entire civilization on the brink of extinction hit hard. He had fought wars before, but this felt bigger. It wasn't just about saving a planet. It was about preserving an entire species. A dangerous decision. The pilot's voice crackled over the comms, interrupting their conversation. "Captain, we're approaching the edge of Krathen-controlled space. What are your orders?" Aaron stood and made his way to the cockpit. The holographic map Lyra had projected still hung in his mind. The marked planet, home to the ancient machine, was deep in enemy territory. Getting there would require stealth, luck, and possibly a miracle. "We go in," Aaron said firmly. "No detours." The pilot hesitated. "You realize what that means, right? If we get caught." "We won't," Aaron cut him off. "Just keep us off their scanners. I'll handle the rest." Returning to the main cabin, Aaron addressed his team. "Listen up. This mission just got a lot bigger than any of us expected. We're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for the survival of an entire species. If any of you want out, now's the time to speak up." The room was silent. Each soldier looked at Aaron, their resolve evident in their eyes. They had followed him through impossible odds before, and they weren't about to stop now. "Good," Aaron said with a nod. "Then let's get it done." An unexpected encounter. As the dropship glided through Krathen space, tension filled the air. The crew worked in near silence, their eyes fixed on the sensors. Every blip on the radar was met with held breaths, every shadow in the void a potential threat. Suddenly, the ship's systems flickered, and an alarm blared. Aaron rushed to the cockpit. "What's happening?" The pilot's face was pale. "Something's interfering with our systems. It's not the Krathens. It's something else." Before Aaron could respond, a massive ship loomed into view, emerging from the shadows of a nearby asteroid. It wasn't Krathen. It was Illyrian. Its sleek, elegant design shimmered in the starlight, and its presence was both awe-inspiring and ominous. "It's my people," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. She moved to the viewport, her glowing eyes wide with both hope and fear. The Illyrian ship hailed them, and a holographic figure appeared on the dropship's console. It was an older Illyrian male, his regal bearing and elaborate attire marking him as someone of importance. "Lyra," the figure said, his voice filled with emotion. "You are alive." Lyra's breath caught. "Uncle." Aaron glanced between them, his instincts warning him that this was no simple reunion. The older Illyrian's expression hardened as his gaze shifted to the humans. "You brought them here?" he asked coldly. "After all that has happened." "They saved me," Lyra said firmly. "They, our allies now." Her uncle's eyes narrowed. "Allies or invaders?" Aaron stepped forward. "We're here to help. Lyra says the artifact can activate some kind of machine, something that can stop the Krathens." The older Illyrian's expression darkened. "The Protector is no simple machine. It is a weapon of unimaginable power. Power that can destroy just as easily as it can save." Lyra stood tall, her voice unwavering. "We have no choice. The Krathens will not stop until we are all gone." Her uncle hesitated, then sighed heavily. "Very well. But know this. If you fail, the consequences will be catastrophic. For all of us." As the Illyrian ship escorted the dropship deeper into enemy space, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was becoming more dangerous by the second. And for the first time, he began to wonder if they were truly prepared for what lay ahead. Journey to the Hidden Kingdom. The Illyrian ship, now escorting the human dropship, cut through Krathen-controlled space like a silent predator. Its sleek, luminous design blended seamlessly with the starlit void, evading detection. Inside the human ship, the tension was almost suffocating. Captain Aaron Steele stood near the viewport, watching the massive vessel glide ahead, its alien technology both mesmerizing and intimidating. "Hard to believe they've been hiding ships like that, while we've been getting slaughtered out here," one of Aaron's soldiers muttered. Aaron didn't reply. He was still processing everything. Lyra's revelation, the artifact's purpose, and now the sudden appearance of her uncle, who clearly distrusted humans. Despite their temporary alliance, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that the Illyrian leader had his own agenda. An uneasy alliance. In the Illyrian ship's grand chamber, Lyra and Aaron met with her uncle, Lord Kale. The chamber was a stark contrast to the sterile, utilitarian design of human ships. Intricate patterns glowed faintly along the walls, and the air hummed with energy. Aaron couldn't tell if it was technology or something more organic. "We are approaching the ancient world of Azuran," Kale began, his voice calm but commanding. "It is the cradle of our civilization and the resting place of the Protector. Few Illyrians have seen it, and even fewer understand its power." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "The Krathens will come. We must activate the Protector before they arrive." Kale frowned, his sharp gaze fixed on Aaron. "And what of your human allies? Can they be trusted not to turn this power against us once the Krathens are defeated?" Aaron met his gaze without flinching. "We didn't come all this way to fight another war. We're here to help. The Krathens are a threat to all of us." Kale's expression softened slightly, but his mistrust lingered. "Very well. But know this, Captain Steele. If you betray us, the Protector will judge you." Aaron raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The cryptic warning didn't sit well with him, but there was no turning back now. The Forgotten World. As the ships approached Azeran, the view from the viewport took Aaron's breath away. The planet was unlike anything he had ever seen. Massive rings of shimmering debris encircled it, glowing faintly like a protective barrier. The surface was a tapestry of lush forests, crystalline lakes, and ancient ruins that pulsed with light. "This place looks alive," one of Aaron's soldiers murmured. "It is," Lyra said softly. "Azeran is sacred. Its energy feeds the Protector." The dropship descended through the atmosphere, guided by Cal's vessel. As they approached the ground, massive structures came into view. Towering spires and intricate temples, their surfaces covered in glowing symbols. The architecture was ancient yet advanced, as if the planet itself had been designed as a living machine. The landing was smooth, but Aaron felt a strange unease as he stepped onto the ground. The air was thick with an almost tangible energy, and the faint hum he had heard on the Illyrian ship was even louder here. "Stay alert," he told his team. "This place might be beautiful, but it's still enemy territory." The path to the Protector. Lyra led the group through the ruins, the artifact glowing brighter with each step. Aaron noticed that the symbols on the walls seemed to react to her presence, lighting up as she passed. It was as if the planet recognized her. Cal followed closely, his expression a mix of pride and apprehension. The path to the Protector is not easy. It was designed to test the worthiness of those who seek its power. Aaron glanced at him. "And if we're not worthy?" Cal didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. The group entered a massive temple, its entrance flanked by towering statues of Illyrian figures. Inside, the air was cooler, and the glowing symbols cast an ethereal light on the walls. As they ventured deeper, they came across a series of massive doors, each inscribed with complex patterns. Lyra approached the first door and placed the artifact against it. The patterns shifted, glowing brighter before the door slowly opened. Beyond it was a vast chamber filled with floating platforms, each separated by seemingly endless chasms. "What is this?" one of Aaron's soldiers asked, staring at the platforms. "A test," Cal said grimly. "The Protector does not allow unworthy hands to activate it." Aaron sighed. "Great, and how do we pass this test?" "The platforms are controlled by the artifact," Lyra explained. "But it requires trust and teamwork." Aaron nodded, motioning for his team to stay close. As Lyra manipulated the artifact, the platforms began to shift and align, creating a narrow path across the chamber. The group moved cautiously, the chasm below radiating a strange energy that made Aaron's skin crawl. Halfway across, the chamber trembled, and the platforms began to shift erratically. "They're destabilizing," a soldier shouted. Lyra's hands moved frantically over the artifact. "I can fix it, but need time." Aaron looked back and saw Cal standing still, his gaze fixed on Lyra. "She's the key," Cal muttered to himself. "The Protector responds to her. Whatever it's responding to, tell her to hurry up." Aaron snapped. Lyra finally stabilized the platforms, and the group made it across the chamber. Beyond the final door was the Protector itself. The Protector revealed. The Protector was awe-inspiring. It was a colossal structure, half machine, half living entity. Its surface pulsed with energy, and its towering form seemed to hum with life. Aaron couldn't help but feel small in its presence. Lyra approached it slowly, the artifact glowing brighter than ever. Cal stepped forward, his voice filled with reverence. "This is the heart of our civilization. The Protector can end the war, but only if it is awakened." Aaron frowned. "And what happens if we fail?" Cal's expression darkened. "Then the Krathens will destroy us all." As Lyra prepared to activate the Protector, Aaron's comms crackled. The pilot's voice came through, panicked. "Captain, we've got incoming. Krathen ships, lots of them." Aaron's stomach dropped. The Krathens had found them. and now they had no choice but to fight, and hope the Protector would wake in time. Betrayal and sacrifice. The air around the Protector's chamber thrummed with growing energy as Lyra stepped closer to the colossal machine, the artifact in her trembling hands glowing brighter with each step. Captain Aaron Steele stood behind her, his rifle ready, his senses sharp. The Krathens were closing in fast, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on his shoulders. "Lyra, how long will this take?" he asked, his voice taut with urgency. "I don't know," she admitted, her glowing eyes fixed on the intricate symbols etched into the Protector's surface. "It depends on the Protector." Aaron cursed under his breath. "The Protector better be fast. We don't have much time." Behind them, Cale paced, his face lined with worry. "The Krathens will not let us activate this without a fight. They fear its power for good reason." Aaron turned to his team. "Get into defensive positions. If they're coming, we'll give them a fight they won't forget." The Krathen attack begins. The first wave came swiftly, sleek, insect-like drones buzzing into the chamber, their plasma weapons firing in deadly arcs. Aaron's team opened fire, their rifles lighting up the dim chamber as they took down the invaders. Sparks and debris flew as the drones exploded upon impact, but more swarmed in to take their place. "Lyra, whatever you're doing, do it faster," Aaron shouted over the chaos. Lyra didn't answer. Her focus was entirely on the artifact, her hands moving over its glowing surface with precision. The Protector responded in kind, its surface pulsing and shifting as ancient mechanisms roared to life. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the air grew thick with a strange electric charge. Cale stepped forward, his voice rising above the battle. "It is awakening. Keep them away from her at all costs." Aaron's soldiers fought valiantly, holding the line against the relentless Krathen assault. But as the battle raged on, Aaron noticed something unsettling. Cale wasn't joining the fight. Instead, he was watching Lyra with an intensity that set off alarm bells in Aaron's mind. The betrayal. Aaron's instincts kicked in just as Cale moved. The older Illyrian suddenly darted toward Lyra, his hand reaching for the artifact. Aaron lunged, grabbing Cale's arm and forcing him back. "What the hell are you doing?" Aaron growled, shoving Cale against the wall. Cale glared at him, his eyes burning with desperation. "You don't understand. If she completes the activation, the Protector will bond with her. It will consume her life force to power itself." Aaron froze, his grip tightening on Cale's arm. "What are you talking about?" Cale's voice softened, almost pleading. "The Protector is not just a machine. It's alive. It requires a host to function, a sacrifice. If Lyra bonds with it, she will die." Aaron's stomach twisted. He turned to Lyra, who had overheard every word. Her expression was calm, resolute. "I know," she said softly. "You knew?" Aaron's voice was a mix of disbelief and anger. "And you didn't tell me." Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "There is no other way. My people, your people, need this. I am ready." Aaron shook his head, his mind racing. "There has to be another way. We'll find another way." Cale's voice cut through his thoughts. "There is no other way. She is the last of the royal line. Only her blood can awaken the Protector." Aaron turned back to Cale, fury in his eyes. "You knew this all along, didn't you? You planned to let her die." Cale didn't deny it. "Her sacrifice will save billions. It is her duty." The turning point. The argument was interrupted by a deafening explosion. The chamber shook violently as the Krathens breached the outer walls. Their soldiers stormed in, towering and armored, their weapons glowing ominously. Aaron raised his rifle and shouted, "Hold the line." The battle intensified. Aaron's team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Aaron knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Amid the chaos, Lyra turned to Aaron. "You must let me do this. It is the only way." Aaron hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to protect her. But deep down, he knew she was right. The protector was their only hope. "All right," he said finally, his voice breaking. "But if this works, it better be worth it." Lyra gave him a small, sad smile. "It will be." She stepped forward and placed the artifact into a slot on the protector's surface. The machine roared to life, its energy surging through the chamber. The Krathens faltered, their soldiers hesitating as the protector's power grew. But Lyra didn't stop. She placed her hands on the machine, and a blinding light enveloped her. Erin watched in horror as the energy consumed her, her body glowing brighter and brighter until she was almost indistinguishable from the protector itself. The sacrifice. The light intensified, and the protector fully awakened. Its towering form began to shift and move, its weapons targeting the Krathens with devastating precision. Beams of energy shot out, obliterating the enemy forces in seconds. But Erin's focus wasn't on the battle. It was on Lyra. She stood at the heart of the machine, her body flickering like a dying star. He rushed toward her, ignoring Cal's shouts. "Lyra," he called, his voice raw. She turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with both sorrow and peace. "It's done," she said, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for believing in me." Erin reached out, but before he could touch her, the light consumed her completely. When it faded, she was gone. The protector stood silent and still, its energy pulsing softly. The Krathen threat had been neutralized, but at a cost Erin hadn't been prepared to pay. The aftermath. As the dust settled, Erin stood in the chamber, staring at the protector. Cal approached him, his expression a mix of grief and pride. "She has become one with the protector. Her sacrifice will be remembered for generations." Erin clenched his fists, his heart heavy. She didn't have to die. Cal placed a hand on his shoulder. "She chose to. For all of us." Erin didn't respond. He turned and walked away, leaving the chamber and the protector behind. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. And though Lyra was gone, her legacy would live on. But for Erin, the victory felt hollow. He had saved a queen, only to lose her to a fate she had quietly accepted. As he boarded the dropship and stared out at the stars, he silently vowed to honor her sacrifice by ensuring her people's survival, and never letting anyone forget the price she paid. The Queen's ascension. The battlefield lay silent. The Krathen forces, once a relentless wave of destruction, were now nothing more than charred remains and scattered debris. The protector stood tall, its immense form glowing faintly as if it were catching its breath after unleashing its unimaginable power. But the victory felt hollow to Captain Erin Steele as he stared at the massive machine, knowing what it had cost. Lyra was gone. Her sacrifice had awakened the protector, turning the tide of the war. But it had also left an emptiness that Erin couldn't shake. He stood at the edge of the chamber, his hands clenched into fists, his mind replaying her last words over and over. "It's done." The weight of those words felt like a boulder on his chest. For all their efforts, for all their sacrifices, the cost had been too great. A new challenge. Cal approached Erin, his expression somber but resolute. The older Illyrian carried himself with a renewed sense of purpose, though his face betrayed the grief he carried for his niece. "Captain Steele," Cal began, his voice steady but low. "The Protector has done what it was built to do. The Krathen forces have been decimated. Their fleet is retreating. For now, we are safe." Erin turned to him, his jaw tight. "For now, that doesn't sound like the end of the war." Cal nodded, his gaze distant. "The Krathens will regroup. They will not stop until they have destroyed us all. The Protector's power is vast, but it cannot protect every corner of the galaxy. We must rebuild, strengthen alliances, and prepare for their inevitable return." Erin frowned. "And what about Lyra? What happens to her now?" Cal looked at the Protector, his expression softening. She is part of it now. The Protector's consciousness is linked to hers. She may no longer walk among us, but her spirit endures, watching over us. Aaron's fists unclenched slightly. That's not good enough. A message from beyond. As if in response to Aaron's words, the Protector began to hum softly, its glow intensifying. The chamber filled with a warm, golden light, and Aaron and Cale turned to face it. From the center of the machine, a familiar figure began to form, a shimmering projection of Lyra. Lyra? Aaron's voice cracked as he stepped closer. The projection smiled softly, her glowing eyes meeting his. Aaron. Uncle. Cale dropped to one knee, bowing his head. Lyra, you are still with us. I am, but not as I was, she said, her voice serene yet filled with an otherworldly echo. The Protector and I are one now. My sacrifice was necessary to awaken its power, but it was also a gift. I can see the galaxy as I never could before. I can guide you. Aaron's throat tightened. We can still fight together then. We can end this war. Lyra's expression turned sad. I cannot fight alongside you as I once did. My presence here is limited. The Protector's power must be used sparingly, or it will burn out. But I will guide you in rebuilding what was lost. Aaron shook his head. You didn't have to do this. We could have found another way. There was no other way, Lyra said gently. And I chose this path willingly. My people needed me, and so did yours. Cale rose slowly, his voice filled with reverence. You have become more than a queen, Lyra. You are a beacon of hope. Lyra's image flickered slightly. Uncle, you must take up the mantle of leadership. Our people need a steady hand to guide them in this time of rebuilding. And Aaron. She turned to him, her eyes softening. You have shown me the strength and courage of humanity. I see now why my parents believed in your kind. Aaron looked down, his hands clenched at his sides. What's the plan, Lyra? What do we do next? The path forward. The Krathens fear unity, Lyra explained. They thrive on division and chaos. To truly defeat them, the Illyrian people and humanity must unite. Wait, Aaron called, his voice desperate. Will I see you again? Lyra's fading figure gave him one last smile. I will always be here, Aaron, watching, guiding, protecting. And with that, she was gone. The Queen's legacy. The chamber fell silent, save for the soft hum of the Protector. Aaron stood still, his gaze fixed on the spot where Lyra's projection had been. Cale placed a hand on his shoulder. She trusted you, Cale said. And now, so must I together. We will honor her legacy. Aaron nodded slowly. Let's get to work. A new beginning. As the dropship lifted off from Azeran, Aaron looked out at the planet below. It felt strange to leave the Protector, and Lyra, behind. But he knew there was no time for grief. The Krathens were still out there, and the galaxy needed to be ready. In the cockpit, Aaron pulled up a map of nearby human colonies. He had a new mission now, building the alliance Lyra had envisioned. It wouldn't be easy, but he wouldn't stop until their sacrifice meant something. As the ship disappeared into the stars, Aaron made a silent vow. He would honor Lyra's memory not just by fighting, but by building a future worth protecting. A future where humanity and the Illyrian people could stand together as equals. And somewhere in the vastness of the galaxy, Lyra's light continued to shine, guiding them all toward that future.